Today we're going to be talking about how you can nourish yourself financially. During our Nourish series, we've talked about a lot of different ways that you can bring in nourishment, whether that's through mindfulness, meditation, moving your body, eating well. There's a lot of different ways we can bring in nourishment, but I think sometimes the financial side gets missed. So a lot of people have asked, you're a wealth advisor, how can you nourish yourself financially? What is the relationship here as we think about it? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is ways that you can think about how to nourish yourself financially and use that to help you live your life with more ease. So let's jump in. My name is Meath-Sinkin. I'm a certified financial planner, accredited investment fiduciary, and partner at Meath Wealth Advisors. And I spend a lot of my time helping clients understand how to set up the right financial plans to live better, to reach their goals, and to make a positive impact on their family. At the same time, I also have a master's in public health. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I have a huge passion for how we can use really important tools like mindfulness, meditation, good eating to live better. And I've utilized a lot of these things in my life over the last several decades. So what I often see is that there's blind spots on both sides. People can feel really healthy and vibrant and not have their finances in order, and it doesn't allow the picture to be completed. At the same time, people can have the best financial plan, but if they're not nourishing themselves in other ways, it doesn't matter. So I think there's an important discussion to be had about how we can use important wealth principles and combine those with important health principles to help us live better. This is one of my favorite all-time Ayurvedic quotes. The one who has established himself, who has properly functioning bodily processes, and whose mind, soul, and senses are full of bliss is called a healthy person. And to me, this sutra really embodies what it means to be healthy. It's about being a whole, nourished person. And I bring this in the context today because I think when we think about the health and wealth sides of things, you can have someone who feels really nourished and healthy, but their finances are a mess and they're not able to live their fullest. There's things that are holding them back. On the wealth side, you can have someone who has all the wealth in the world and even a good plan, but they're not nourishing themselves on the health side. And I think it really takes both sides of the health and wealth, this integration. I see this as a circle because I really think when you can complete that circle, you can allow yourself to live full. You can feel vibrant. You can live a life full of bliss. When we think about the health and wealth circle, we've spent a lot of time together looking at ways that we can nourish ourselves through health. We've talked about really practical things, how you can build a strong daily routine for yourself, good exercises that you can incorporate into your life, ways that you can nourish yourself through food. We've also talked about more subtle things, ways that you can engage in mindfulness practices, incorporate meditation, bring in gratitude practices. On the wealth side, it's really important that we look at ways we can nourish ourselves as well. What are practical things that we can incorporate? We can understand our financial situation. We can define our financial destinations, get really clear about what our goals and our vision is for our lives. We can also take actions to clearly understand how to get from our current situation to the different destinations we have in mind for ourselves. We can also look at more emotional things. What are our money stories? What thought patterns and things did we pick up from our parents? How do we react to financial stresses? And what are ways that we can use that information to incorporate practices that are going to help us to relate to our finances and feel more nourished when we think about our wealth? So what does it look like when we're not nourished by our health? It looks like stress, and the reality is a lot of people have money stress. According to the American Psychological Association, over 72% of adults report feeling stressed out about money. That's a lot of people. And stress can impact us in so many ways. Many parents and younger generations report that finances and stress are barriers to living a healthy lifestyle. Women also consistently report feeling more stressed than men do and have a harder time coping. The reality is that stress impacts us. Ongoing stress about money has been linked to migraines, heart disease, diabetes, and sleep problems. Stress impacts us in so many different ways, and it really impacts our ability to move through our day from a healthy place. Studies also show that people who have more debt also have more stress, and that's linked to mental depression and anxiety compared to those people who don't. So we really need to look at stress about money is a very real thing, and a lot of people have it. So what are some ways that we can look at reducing some of that stress? So what are all the different ways that you can feel stressed about money? There can be a lot. I share this chart. This is actually our services chart, but on it what you see is a lot of different decisions that have to be made depending on what stage of life you're in. If you're a young family, there's decisions about education for kids, homes, what you should be saving for retirement. As you prepare for retirement, if you get closer, it's, am I going to be okay in retirement? What are the important things that I need to make sure I'm doing? When should I take Social Security? What are RMDs? How does my planning impact RMDs? There is a ton, and that's just a few of them. So if you're someone who does feel overwhelmed or stressed, you're in really good company because there is a lot. But there are things that we can do to help. I think it's important to mention, though, that no matter how much you meditate, if you're constantly feeling stressed and overwhelmed about money, every time you get off the mat, that's going to come up again. So I do think it's important to address the root, to understand how you can get clear about finances and understand some practical decisions that you can make and how to put yourself in a good situation. Why is clarity important? You see a picture here of a lake that's really muddy. You can't see through to the bottom. You don't know what's going on. It's really unclear what's happening below. Whereas if you actually look at this lake, right, that's really clear, you can see what's going on, you can see through to the bottom, you can feel more ease because you know there's nothing lurking under there that might come up or surprise you. Understanding where we're going, having a picture of where we're going is really important. It helps relax the nervous system because we have a sense of what is coming next. You see this with little kids in simple decisions. If they have no idea where they're going, in a given day or what's supposed to happen in a given day, they're chaotic. They run all over the place. They don't really know what they should be doing. The same thing is true for us. When we're able to have a plan to understand what's coming next, the nervous system can relax. And bringing this clarity is a really important part of how we can do that. Making money decisions is really hard. We all want to answer this question, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be able to put a roof over my head? Am I going to be able to support my family, my kids, myself now and in the future into retirement? I think that's one of the fundamental questions people always have when they come in to talk to us. It's, am I going to be okay? No matter how much money somebody has. And I think this gets at the core of who we are as humans, this survival instinct that we have. In yoga, we think about that as your first chakra, your ability to feel safe and situated in the world. And when that's being taxed, everything else, you can't build up from there. So the first step in answering this question, am I going to be okay, is starting to get clear. If you aren't able to answer the question, what is your financial situation? What do things currently look like for you? That's just going to continually trigger that question, am I going to be okay? So understanding this at its core is really important. It's just starting with the basics, understanding what are the, and this might seem totally curveball, but what are your current monthly expenses? What income do you have coming in? How much are you currently saving now? How does that impact your life now? How will that impact life in your future? How are you supporting your kids? And again, how does that impact you now? How does that impact you in the future? These are a lot of different questions that come up when we think about our finances, but we can't answer any of those unless we have clarity about where we are now. Understanding this in a clear picture, putting it together in one place. That alone can do a lot. When we're working with clients for the first time and we put everything in one place, there is often this aha moment. and this relaxation because you know everything is in one place. You have it together. And from there, you can start to build up. You can start to answer some of those questions, and you can see where there's gaps. You can see if those worries that you have are valid. Oftentimes, people worry about a lot of different things financially, and what they're worried about isn't what they should be worried about. It's totally other things that they've completely missed along the way because they haven't taken time to understand the basics. So getting clear on this is really an important first step. Once you understand where you are, it's essential to understand where you're going. Without knowing where you're going, it's hard to answer the question that you're going to be okay when you get there. So it's understanding what is that future for you? What is your vision? What is important to you? And how can you make sure that you're taking the right steps to get there? It's getting from that I don't know part to I know. I know what life is going to look like for me, and I know that I'm going to be okay once I get there. I think that's an essential component. How many times when people ask you a question that you don't know the answer to, and you say, I don't know, sometimes that feels okay because it's out of your wheelhouse, but when it touches on such a core aspect of who we are and that ability to feel like we're able to support ourselves, like we're able to support those around us, we want to be able to answer that question. I know where I'm going. I know what's important to me, and I know how to get there along the way. So that's a really important part of this process, is really defining where you're going and what you want that to look like. A lot of people wonder what they should do when it comes to their finances, but you really can't answer this question until you've taken the time to understand where you are, what your situation looks like, and where you want it to go, what you want your future to look like, what your vision is. And when you have those two pieces in place, then you're able to more clearly identify how to get from where you are, your situation, to where you want to go, the destinations that you have in place for your life. We're able to tackle this question, and in doing so, continue to help you relieve stress and relieve worry by bringing more clarity and more ease through understanding. When we think about how to actually go about building and implementing a financial plan, I think it's also important to remember how to do it in a nourishing way. And I think that can happen in a few ways. First, keep it simple. Take on one bite-sized chunk at a time. Doing everything at once can feel really overwhelming. Two, remember why you're doing it. Remember to tie these things into the larger picture that you have for yourself, what your goals are, what's important to you. That can be a really important and nourishing driving force. Instead of just doing I'm doing some financial step, it's why am I doing it? How is this making my life and the life of those around me better? And I think when we can then start to put all of those different bite-sized chunks together, we understand why we're doing it. We see how it's moving us towards our goals. We're able to start softening our financial worries, those things of, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. You understand how to answer those. You understand why all of the different things are important for you. And I think when you understand the why, when you know you've put specific pieces in place to address all of the different areas in your life, naturally the stress falls away. You can answer those questions without getting derailed by all of the stress. You can know you're taking care of your loved ones. And ultimately, you can know that every piece that you've put in place has built and worked towards you living your best financial life. Now we're going to move a little more subtle, and we're going to talk about the emotional aspects of how we're nourishing ourselves financially. And this is one that often gets missed, but it's really important to take time to understand what stresses you out financially. It's one thing to know what you should be doing or how you should be doing it, but it's a whole nother thing to understand how your emotions are impacting those decisions. There's this saying in Ayurveda that the more balanced we are, the more we're able to make right decisions. And I think that's true when it comes to our finances as well. The more clear we are, the more we understand our situation, the more we're able to clearly make those decisions. For example, take a minute to think about if you're having a hard time, right? If you're in a moment where you're feeling a lot of anxiety or you're feeling emotionally out of balance and you go to the store, have you ever bought something impulsively that you didn't really need just because it was driven out of emotion? I talked to one particular person who said she used to go out and buy a lot when she was feeling like she needed to fill up herself. But when she started to meditate and to do some things to internally nourish herself, she was able to now go out and go to the store or go various places and buy those things she needed, those things that would really nourish her instead of having it come from a disconnected place. Another example is anxiety around kind of financial decisions and money. And I see this a lot when people are feeling insecure. That's the person that's going to call me and say, hey, I need to pull all of my money out of the market, because they're scared that something's going to happen. But it's not being driven from a rational place. It's being driven from an emotional place. So it's really important to understand some of those emotions that are driving how we feel. For example, are there old money stories that you've picked up as a kid, things that you might have taken on from your parents that aren't true for you in your life? That could be, maybe your parents had anxiety about money or they had constrictions around it. And if you look at your practical financial world, that's no longer true for you, but it's something you're holding on to. Or maybe when you first started working, there was constriction or tightness or things developed, or maybe you've just taken on this idea that you're not good with money or you don't know what to do. And those knee-jerk reactions kind of influence your ability to make decisions, influence your ability to sit down and do those things that we were talking about previously, getting clear, understanding your situation, understanding how to put a plan in place. If there's still a lot of emotions that are impacting those decisions, it's really hard to do it from a clear place. So I think it's essential to understand what emotions are driving in the background. And there's a lot of different ways we can do this. I'm not going to share all of those today, but I think just laying the groundwork, that doing it, that understanding it, and that putting something in place is a really good first step. One practical action that you could take is to journal about your experience with money as a child. This could be a specific experience you had. These could be multiple experiences that you had, and just let it be freeform. There's no right or wrong. Journal for 10, even 30 minutes and just see what comes up. Is there anything that you notice? Is there anything you're feeling when you're writing about it? Maybe there's some positive emotions that come up. Maybe there's some things that feel a little bit sticky or uncomfortable. Just the act of understanding and clarifying these things that I think sometimes is unconscious can be really powerful. So an example I'll share is one specific event that I remember as a kid. We were in a candy store. I was with my brother. And my brother had a tendency to spend money very freely, but I held on to mine really tight for fear that someday I would need it for me or my family, which of course wasn't rooted in reality at all at the time, but it's something that emotionally I felt. And I even notice today sometimes when I feel constriction around money come up, a lot of it harkens back to some of those constrictions that I held when I was a child. When I'm able to just clearly see and articulate and voice the fact that, oh, this is just something that's coming up for me. This isn't true for my reality right now. I notice my system soften, my system relax, and I'm able to move forward with the decision that feels a lot more clear. So sometimes just journaling about these past events, understanding them, looking at them, that alone can be really powerful. And it can then cause you to bring up some of those old things when you're in the moment again and realize that they aren't true anymore and you don't need to carry them forward into your current situation. Another tool that I find helpful when we're looking at how we relate to money is understanding our specific body types and money type. And I pull this from my studies in Ayurvedic medicine, where they talk about these different tendencies that we have in our life based on this unique body type that we have. And based on who we are, who we uniquely are, we relate to things in the world around us in different ways. And that is true in relationship to money. I'm going to share 3 body types and what happens when we feel stressed about those and how that can be helpful for us. When we think about these body types in Ayurveda, there's a very airy body type. And when under stress, this body type tends to get really worried and anxious. They have all the different thoughts running in their head, sort of swirling, feeling really overwhelmed. Whereas a fiery body type will tend to become really controlling of themselves and of the world around them. They kind of want to control everything and get kind of irritable. That third body type is the earthy body type. And this body type tends to tune out and pretty much not want to do anything when they're under stress. They have a hard time motivating themselves into action. So how can we use this understanding to inform things in relationship to money? That first body type, the airy body type, when they are relating to money and they're feeling stressed, looking at details can feel like a lot. It can be really overwhelming when you're looking at a lot of different pieces at one time, and you can sort of just start to spin out. So with this body type, it's really important to look at your plan and look at the big picture pieces of it. And remember what your plan is, why you have your plan in place, and how you are okay by having this plan. That helps soften the nervous system and helps you avoid making impulsive or quick decisions that might actually derail your plan in the long term. When fiery body type is relating to money, this is the body type that wants to, again, control everything. So for this person, it actually can be helpful to go back through and look at all of the nuances of the plan. That same action could have completely overwhelmed an airy type, but for a fiery type, it's actually very grounding. I'm one of those people. When I sit down and look at my plan, I start to soften, I start to see everything come together, and it starts to feel better for me. And I see that I'm on track, I'm doing what I need to do, and in doing that, I can soften. That third body type is the earthy body type. So again, this was the one that had a hard time doing anything, moving into action. This is where remembering why you're building a plan, remembering the inspirations about how that plan is helping you or those around you can sometimes be enough to just, remember that that's there and know that everything is on track. So there's a lot more nuances to this, but the more we can understand how we are relating to these different things, the more it becomes a habit. Both when we're in financial stress and when we're building our larger plan, we understand our tendencies, how we might react when things get stressful, and we can use all of those things to help us stay on track and ultimately to feel better, to feel less stress, to feel less anxiety when we approach things in our financial world. For those of you who are interested in understanding what your money type / body type are, I've put together a quiz that you'll be able to download and understand for yourself. But essentially what you do is just go through high level some basic questions. How you're relating to stress, how you're thinking about money in different situations. And then what you'll see is that how you answer those questions sort of ranks into those 3 primary body types. Again, it can be a lot more nuanced, but this is just a high level way to help you get started. Once you've answered those questions, you'll find they fit into these 3 primary categories. And my sincere goal with all of this is to help you understand yourself and your tendencies better, because I believe that in doing that, we're more able to dance and see clearly and make informed decisions as we move through our life, which ultimately just helps us feel more content, helps us live with what we call more ease in Ayurveda, and helps us move away from dis-ease. The more we understand, the more we're able to make those informed decisions to help us live better. At this point, it's probably become clear that the reason we're trying to gain more clarity through all of the different things we can do practically with our money and emotionally around money, it's to give us a sense of where we're going. It's to give us a framework that we can use to provide grounding financially. And when we have that clarity, when we know where we're going, when we know what's coming next, the nervous system can relax. And when the nervous system can relax, we have more ease. We're able to take a breath. And that is the goal. That's the goal of everything that we're talking about, whether it's things on the health side or the wealth side. It's to understand those things, those tools, those practices that we can incorporate in our life to bring in more clarity, to help us make right decisions, and to ultimately help us live with more ease. Because when we're living with ease, things are flowing, things are moving, and we're feeling more content and nourished by the world around us. Now we come full circle. I've really seen in my experience, both working with people on the health side and the wealth side, that true nourishment only comes when we have integration of the two. And while certain practical decisions on the wealth side you may not think impact health, when you have more clarity about where you're going, about where you are, and about how to get there financially,
This can help your financial stress go down. You may no longer feel uncomfortable answering the question,
how are you doing financially? What's going on? You're able to answer it. And even if it changes, that's okay. It's understanding what you should be doing and how you're doing it right now. And it's looking at the emotional side of things too. And when we
this
take
can
that
help
all
your
together,
financial
we
stress go
truly
down.
do
You
feel
may no
more
longer feel
nourished on the wealth
uncomfortable
side.
answering the
And when we
question.
pair that with all of the things that we've been learning together on the wealth side, I think you really are able to get to this place, just as I shared at the beginning in that slide with my daughter, to live a life full of bliss, to live with more ease in your life, to make more of an impact in your life and in the lives of those around you. You're able to have more joy and more ease. This whole series has been a true joy for me to present, and it's my sincere wish that there has been tools that can make your life and the life of those around you better.